Hello and welcome back to Sci Rants, or I guess Separatist Rants, as this is the second part of this little mini-series. And, as I said previously, this video will be covering the military of the Separatist Alliance, or the CIS. Anyway, as I mentioned previously, Droid Army. Well, at least in part 1, Droid Army. Yes, that is the Separatists. They are a massive droid army, and the very first to use wide-scale droid armies instead of standard troop armies. And when I say the first to standard use those, I mean they're the first army to use them as their basic troop. And even the Republic used battle droids to an extent with their clones, which is somewhat funny because most of the time they hate them. As far as the other factions later on go, the Resistance would never really use them. The Empire, if you count the bounty hunter IG-88 and his little side faction, yeah, I guess, yes, they did use them. But that being said, the Separatists do have special forces. There is a wide variety of, well, separatist commandos and various different groups, some of which are Nemoidians, which I find kind of interesting. And there are also various other people in the Separatist Alliance that do offer their own services. And yeah, the Separatist Alliance is a lot more well established as well with the Republic when it comes to their army. And it's as simple as having more than one factory. Keep in mind that the Republic, as far as canon goes, only has one major factory, which is why Camino was so important. That produces about, I don't know, 100% of all the clones you've seen in the entire war. So yeah, it's pretty important. Comparing this with Geonosis, which is basically the equivalent, it doesn't really add up much. From a sheer numbers perspective, for every one clone produced on Camino, there's about 1,000, maybe 5,000 if we're roughly estimating, battle droids constructed in Geonosis. And considering there are over 300,000 clones, by sheer numbers and by just doing a bit of basic math, there are over 3 billion battle droids. Which is, yeah, that's a bit, that should just tell you how outnumbered the Republic really was. While a single battle droid of the, well, separatist version, the B1, might not seem that, interesting or, deadly at first, there's a lot of genius behind the design. If we can't outright win based off of, just sheer amount of people and planets, then we'll beat them with how many we bring to those planets. And it is this exact mentality that puts the Separatists far above the Republic. This means that for most Jedi, even those who master Form 3, which is a very defensively minded blaster deflection form, even they will struggle against this type of tactic. Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of the more famous Form 3 users, and I have a feeling that if he were to be surrounded by well over 50 battle droids, he would still be defeated. And of course, there's the other thing about the Separatists, which is they're very independent. Being called the Independent Systems or the Confederacy of Independent Systems, I think you can see why that would be good. Them having access to trade ships is something that's interesting, because a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, had no idea that the first vessel that was actually made for war that the Separatists made was the Providence class, also known as the same class of ship that General Grievous had in Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3. Yes, this is their only vessel that they have exclusively made for combat. Every other vessel, the Luger Hulk mainly, Rip Luger Hulk, has always been a trade vessel. Meaning, every time a Luger Hulk is present, it's just been refitted with more turbo lasers. A lot more. Like, stupid amounts of turbo lasers. As far as it goes, though, the Separatists had one other advantage up their sleeve. The fact that if they lost an entire battalion of droids, they always have 16 more ready to be deployed. People seem to underestimate just how many droids the Separatists had. Like, insanely high to the point where it was somewhat of a questionable decision why the Republic would even fight. But towards the end of the war, most of their droids were expended, simply due to the fact that the clones kept the advantage. And while, yes, the Republic did eventually win, I have a firm belief that if the real leader of the Separatist Alliance had put more effort into actually winning the war, they probably could have. The entire Separatist Alliance. And for more clarification, this real leader was not Palpatine. Yes, he did technically rule both sides, but the real leader was Count Dooku. Almost all of the Clone Wars was based off of his movements. Remember one thing particularly. Sidious is Dooku's master, but he is not the leader of the Alliance. The Separatists view Dooku as their leader, and have viewed him as their leader. In every council meeting, he is mostly present. And of course, in almost every time we see him, most Separatists will favor him. A lot of propaganda was with him. But either way, the Separatists are superior. They always have been, and they always will be.